Hey guys, welcome to another Film Noir Friday. This one is going to focus on a type of character that shows up in a lot of film noirs, and that's the obsessed cop. There's a few examples in classic film noir. I'm going to focus on one that I saw recently on Netflix Instant Watch, and that's a great movie called The Big Combo. And basically what you have with The Big Combo is a great black and white film noir. Like I said, an obsessed cop, which is played by Cornell Wilde. He plays Lieutenant Diamond. But we find out he's obsessed with taking down a guy he believes to be in charge of the organized crime in the city, Mr. Brown. He's so obsessed with this case that he's spent a lot of money. His boss is kind of chiding him for spending so much money, man hours, on this one case. He's been having his mistress followed, and you find out right away that Diamond is pretty much in love with the mistress that he's having followed. Now the opening scene is actually an introduction of that mistress as she's being chased through the back hallways of a boxing ring while a big boxing match is going on. Mr. Brown's two goons are trying to get her before she runs out because he wants her looked after at all times. So if you're a fan of black and white photography, this would be a good one to start off with if you're interested in film noir. Some great scenes, great use of light and shadow. Like I said, that first introductory scene is a good example of that. Also, the climax of the film includes a spotlight being used, and that is done effectively as well. There's really a lot to talk about with The Big Combo and some of the edgy things that they address. But I'll start with this idea of the obsessed cop. Not only do you have the hero of the film being obsessed, but he's also not presented as a squeaky clean kind of guy. And even though Lieutenant Diamond is obsessed with taking out Mr. Brown and evidently in love with his mistress, but he also has a showgirl on the side that he sees every now and then, and you definitely get the idea that it's an arrangement of just for sex, really. It's alluded to in that introductory scene of the showgirl because he invites her to a party, and she asks who's going to be there, and he says only you, or something to that effect. And so you can tell that party is basically just a hookup. And she says something that also alludes to her possibly being a prostitute. Even though they show her as a showgirl, it seems like she's either a prostitute or just really, slutty. Because she says something about, why don't you call, you always just show up. Why don't you call in advance like all the other guys? I don't know, the sense of it kind of sounded like she was a prostitute. But it's one of those relationships that's interesting as well, because you start to see that the showgirl is in love with Lieutenant Diamond, but she knows he's not in love with her. She knows it's just an arrangement for sex only, basically. So that's interesting. There's a mystery element to the movie, and that's another staple of film noir. A lot of them include mysteries, and in this case, the mystery revolves around a name, a female's name. I forget what the name is, but he finds about this name that I forget who saw Mr. Brown writing in the frost of a window and quickly wiped it away. So Lieutenant Diamond knows it must be important in some way. So he's trying to figure out why, and the revelation of that mystery is interesting. And now Mr. Brown is interesting as well, because not only do they establish him as being really, a tough, mean kind of crime lord, but you get a sense of his past how he had kind of worked his way up. They talk about how he had been a security guard at one time, or a prison guard at one time. But he's got a second in command who used to be his boss, but now, he can treat this guy really poorly and prove to people that he's the big dog, basically, as far as the crime organization goes. Whatever, he can do things to just humiliate this second in command, and he'll take it because Mr. Brown is the boss. Of course, that plays in later into the movie. Obviously there's some resentment for the second in command. I need to point out who that actor was because he was really good. Brian Donlevy plays the second in command guy. Now, another interesting thing about that guy is he has a hearing aid, and that hearing aid plays a part in a couple of different times in the movie. One of which is a great torture scene. Mr. Brown and his goons have Lieutenant Diamond captured. They want to torture him, but they don't want any marks left that could, show proof of any physical violence. So Mr. Brown takes his second in command's hearing aid, puts it in Diamond's ear, and it's a hearing aid from the 50s, so it's got this box which is basically the microphone, and he takes a radio and just puts it up, the microphone up to the radio with this big jazz numbers playing, and it's going into a drum solo that's really loud, and the torture is all through basically blowing out his eardrum. So really effective and creative way of torturing him there. The other part that the hearing aid plays, I don't want to say too much about it because it's a great scene that involves the death of somebody. That's really all I can say because I really don't want to give that away because I'd like people to experience it. It's really a really creative moment. Now, I should also talk about Mr. Brown's two thugs, his two goons. I believe their names are Fante and Mingo. Interesting names right off the bat. But they play throughout the film almost like a married couple. Some bickering back and forth, things like that. And as I was watching the film, I thought it was crazy at first. I was like, they're kind of coming off like a gay couple. Not in any type of derogatory way. They weren't effeminate or anything like that. But the way they interacted, it was like there was a relationship between these two guys that was more than just a friendship. And then there's a scene where Lee Van Cleef plays Fante, I forget how it was pronounced. He answers the phone in the middle of the night, a call from Mr. Brown, I think. Of course, he has the conversation, and he puts the phone down, and the camera pulls back, and Mingo is in a single bed in the same room beside him. So these guys are not just partners, they're roommates. They're not just roommates, but they sleep in the same room. Now, of course, this would be at a time where you couldn't see couples together in the same bed. But whenever you saw couples in these old movies, they're in single beds side by side. And that was the case here. And I was just getting more and more, it piqued my interest a little bit. So, of course, after I finished the movie, I had to look it up. And sure enough, there's interviews with the director later on who admits, they were supposed to represent a gay couple without, coming out and say it, obviously. It was definitely implied and, obviously edgy for the time. Another thing, as far as pushing the boundaries of sex during that time in the 50s, there's a scene where Mr. Brown is talking to his mistress. He knows she's unhappy. It's a relationship of fear. And he starts kissing her. She's turned towards the camera and he's behind her. And he starts kissing her on her ear and neck. It starts getting lower and lower. until he disappears out of frame. And as we're dissolving or cutting to the next scene, she seems to have a look of pleasure on her face. That also is something, when I looked up online some information about this movie, that the director admitted was, well, he didn't come out and say that it was oral sex, but he did say he shot it to leave it up to your imagination, because evidently censors wanted to cut it, saying it was a filthy scene, but he said, well, why is it a filthy scene? It's only filthy because you think something filthy is going on. I don't show anything filthy. So they let it stay. And, of course, I have a filthy mind, so that's where my mind went. But the big combo, that's the one that's featured. Now, I also want to talk about a couple other, a film and a television show, actually, that I feel that this movie kind of reminded me of in different ways. And these are things that I feel like have their roots in film noir. Sin City. I've got the Blu-ray and the DVD set here. I really like this DVD set, so I kind of wanted to show that off a little bit. But Sin City, of course, most of you are familiar with. The storyline in Sin City that Big Combo kind of reminded me of was That Yellow Bastard, which is the storyline with Bruce Willis. He's an obsessed cop. He's obsessed with protecting Jessica Alba's character, whose name I forget. But you see the great lengths that he goes throughout the movie, trying to protect her, keep her safe, sacrificing a lot along the way. Of course, spending a lot of time in jail, physical abuse. There's torture scenes that he's enduring, all because he's obsessed with, in this case, protecting Jessica Alba. And Sin City also has in common with the Big Combo the black and white photography. Of course, Sin City using much more modern techniques, and of course Rodriguez and the few scenes Frank Miller directed some, and Tarantino directed a little bit of this. They used it to try to give it that graphic novel feel of the Frank Miller graphic novels. And, of course, the roots of film noir here, Frank Miller's a huge fan, not only film noir movies, but the pulp novels that inspired this. So I think that Sin City pairs up nicely with the Big Combo, especially That Yellow Bastard. When I was watching the Big Combo, I was trying to think of more modern things that I could talk about with the Big Combo, and I kept coming back to The Wire. The great HBO series, arguably one of the best, if not the best TV series ever made. But the first season in particular, you do have the obsessed cop with McNulty, obsessed with not only taking down the drug ring that has Baltimore in its grips, led by Avon and his second-in-command, Stringer Bell. But he's also obsessed with the higher-ups and the bureaucracy of the police department. In the Big Combo, he's chided for spending way too much money on one case, and McNulty is criticized for focusing just on Avon Barksdale's crew, as well as, he's got marital problems, his infidelities, his drinking. He's a great example of the flawed cop, again, which has its roots in film noir. So if you haven't seen The Wire, definitely check that out. Let me know if, you have some examples that you think work as well, or if not better, as far as how the Big Combo and movies like that might have influenced more modern films. Big Combo, Sin City, The Wire. Those are the obsessed cop archetypes. So check them out. All right, hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you later. Bye.